welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here to Diverse Cinemas DB. We're so excited to have you. And I just want to dive in and have each of you introduce yourself and your role on the film and just tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll dive in. And I'll start with you, Rasheed.
Got myself on mute. Hello, my name is Rasheed Stephens, co-director, co-writer, producer, uh, and lead actor. I play this character named Rasheed.
And Tevin, how about you? What's your role on the film?
Hello, Tehben Dean. I co-wrote and directed the film with Rasheed, and I also shot and edited it as well.
And I'm Tyree Jamar. I was a producer on the project. And I made a little cameo. I don't know if you caught it, Chris, but
I sure did.
I was a background player in one of the ending scenes.
Yes, I was waiting for more. So yes, absolutely. So yes, let's dive in. And there are so many things I love about this film. And it was so grounding, so real. Of course, it was shot here in Los Angeles, which we need to see more of that, of course. But one of the things that I felt in the film was this incredible sense of humanity. It's a comedy and there's so many funny parts. And of course, I will try hard not to do any spoilers. But one of the things you said, Rashid, you talked about the adrenaline of dreams. And I wanted to touch on that. And I would love for us to all kind of dive into that because I think that's what we do when we come to LA. We are filled with so much joy and excitement and feelings of what we're going to do when we get here. But I really wanted to ground that in the film and ask what was that coming from? And I would love for you all to talk about that as we dive into the movie.
That's a great question. I think a lot of that stuff stems from me being an ex-athlete. Played football, ran track, wrestled. So I think a lot of that stuff is impulse and instinct, which a lot of athletes do not cultivate that. But me, I was always the hardest worker on the team. Like if I started off in ninth grade as the fifth string quarterback. I remember everybody told me you were never gonna play. By the time we got to my 12th grade year, I was an All-American at safety. So that's just the kind of mindset that I have that's always been my mindset. Just work hard, put your head down, and just do your best. So I don't like to just I don't dabble in anything. I don't do anything just because. Like I don't care. Even if I gotta be homeless or sacrifice, I'm willing to do that. But I like to do what I love. So when I got that acting bug and that writing bug and stuff, I had started taking that. I had what happened? Oh, I know what it was. I was going to Jacksonville State in Alabama, and uh, I exhausted all my electives. And I was like, my counselor, like, what else classes you gonna take? I said, what's open? She said, well, theater is open. But I remember it back in my mind, people used to always say, you're quite entertaining when I was playing football. So I'm like, yeah, let me take the acting class. And I remember the first play I did was by August Wilson. What is it called? Denzel Washington actually made a movie about it.
Princess?
Fences. I did Fences. This is the first time because I had did some couple other plays. I'm like, I'm terrible at this. I did Fences, and then everybody stand up applauding. That was on a Tuesday. I moved to Atlanta on a Wednesday, dropped out of school. By 2 weeks later, I decided to move out to LA on adrenaline dreams. I'm like, I could do this. I'm going
Wow.
to the Mecca.
That's
That's strictly off the adrenaline of dreams. So that's how
wow.
quick that happened. That was a 2 week turnaround.
Wow. So we should be blaming August Wilson for that. He
I
actually
think
inspired me too to be a writer, actually. So there's a lot to be said for his craft and his genius too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you're starting out with something that you are passionate about, something that's like part of you that you can't not do, it's the only thing you have. Like I think Rashid put it very well. The only thing you really have is the adrenaline of dreams to start. And if you ride that, then hopefully you can build it into something that continues to be fulfilling and hopefully someday like pays your rent as well. But in the meantime, like that's really all you have, and it means something if you follow it.
Right, absolutely. And Tyree, I'd love to hear your perspective because you and I have talked about this a lot. We talk about
Um,
the craft a lot.
yeah, the adrenaline of dreams. I'm from here, so it's a little different. I didn't have to move and pursue something. Um, but like Rasheed, I played football, got a full ride scholarship, and I had dreams of pursuing the NFL. Long story short, ultimately didn't make it. But growing up, you couldn't tell me I wasn't going to the league. Like in my mind, it was set on that. So when I'm set on something, I'm gonna get it. I'm a very passionate person. Everything I do, I put my all into it. Or if not, I'm not gonna do it at all because I'm big on like time and not wasting people's time. 'Cause that's one thing we can't get back at the end of the day. Um, so being a passionate person, I can relate to those who come to LA just on a hope and a dream. Coming out here with like $200, I've heard stories, and then people making it. Now I believe that time is over now because inflation and the economy and gas, as far as like, you have to come out to LA with more of a plan. Excuse me. Luckily with me, I have the support system here. I have my family here. So if I ever fell on hard times, like I could stay with family or things like that. But people like Rasheed who move out here, didn't have family, didn't know anybody, and had to live in his car for a certain period of time, like that's a whole nother level. Like that's a whole nother level of really like giving it your all I've got and then some, and to pursue your dreams. So I found I'm always like attracted to people like that with the same mindset, the same drive. You won't take no for an answer. I also think people who come out here kind of have a false sense of reality of really what it takes to make it, quote unquote, make it in Hollywood. I don't believe you ever really think you make it in Hollywood because if you look at all the A-listers, they're constantly like pursuing something. Like it's this constant thing of like, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do that. Um, so I think people come out here with this perception of Hollywood, the glitz, the glamour in life, but really, it's really nitty and gritty. It is a grind that most aren't willing to do. And you can see that with a lot of like online influencers. Like they just want to look good on camera, but they don't understand the work it takes to portray that character. They rather live this facade or this persona. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my in the long form my take on the adrenaline of dreams.
That's amazing, and I love that because it speaks to so much of what you see in the film. It's the grind, it's the grittiness, it's the humor, it's the being within proximity of things and it coming to you, which is what I love to talk about too. One of the things I found with the film is that you immediately know what it is. Sometimes you say to yourself, you're like, "Oh, where is this going?" But I love how you grounded Rashid, and you started with his humanity. You started with who he was as a person, and I want to talk about that too. Why was that so important for you, and your approach to that? And I know that it always starts with the script, but I find that when we start shooting, it's a very different dynamic. And you did that very skillfully. And I want to talk about the importance of why you wanted to make him so human to start in the first like 5 minutes.
We wanted to just tell an authentic story. That was the initial approach. And I was like, because I made something pseudo to this movie prior to, like called Coffee and Cabbage, but I realized I wasn't being my authentic self. I'm like, I don't want nobody to know I was a homeless comic, so I made the guy into a comic book character. But at this time, I had through this story this idea to Tevin about me to tell Rashid real authentic story because maybe somebody could be I could reach somebody out there who may be just about to fall from grace and be like, hey, just pick yourself back up. So I just wanted to tell because I do stand up comedy too. So my my thing is to always be authentic, and my humility always comes out with that. So the humanity of that is just me being always just being as authentic and as transparent as possible. So that was the approach as far as like just making putting on screen and just do it raw.
Yeah.
No
Yeah, I mean, I
food.
think I think that like so often we see so many stories about people who have made it, right? Made it, who are successful, who have broken through, and all of that. But we don't see so many stories about what it takes to get there and what had to happen in order for that to happen. And this film, we just really wanted to show like it's about not giving up on your dream. It's about not giving up on what you believe in. And even though it can be extremely difficult, but if you just keep at it and you keep approaching it with a positive attitude, then like it can turn into something. I mean, the film itself was the result of both of us being in a situation trying to make films, and the struggle, and the challenge of that, where sometimes it just feels like a closed circle and you can't break into it to like get your film made. And so we had just had kind of an experience with that, and the strikes got announced and everything just sort of shut down. And we were just like, all right, well, what do we do? And so we decided, well, let's just do it ourselves. Let's just make it ourselves. We're not going to give up. We're going to go out and do it. We've got friends, we have a camera. Let's just go tell the story. And Rasheed had pitched uh, a web series to me like a couple of years prior, based on one of his experiences living out of his car. So he wanted a web series about a guy who's dating a girl that lives 2 cars behind him. And so I remember that idea, and I called him up the next day because I was thinking about this one night, and I was like, hey, like, what if we take that idea, but let's make it about your story of trying to pursue stand up in LA when you first moved out, and shoot it in kind of a documentary style, which is something I'd always wanted to try to do with a narrative film, because but prior to this, I've been a cinematographer for like 10, 15 years and shot a lot of documentary, and used to shoot a lot of like sports related stuff up in Portland for like Nike and Adidas, and done a lot of like handheld. And as like that would be a really interesting way to approach it, and it also enabled us to do it in a short time frame because we weren't doing like 10 setups for every scene. And so we were able to like shoot the entire film in 1 week. And so because of that, we were able to convince, a lot of people to come out and be on it for like an hour or two, because most roles only required like them coming out for like an hour or two. And so we were able to just like do it. And so it really was just like, there's a lot of like kind of meta elements in this film to me because of the subject and what it took to make it, and then the fact that it has gone anywhere afterwards. It feels like we sort of came out and said, well, if you don't give up and you stick with it, you can make it happen. And then we kind of did that and made it happen. So
That's right.
yeah.
Wow. What a story. And you shot this in a week, and that's always amazing, right? And and to follow up with that, I want to also, before we move into the next, because I do have questions about the documentary style. Tyree, okay, knowing that this took a week as a producer and making sure that this was still grounded and making sure that, yes, we have a film we're shooting, but you're thinking 10, 20 steps ahead, of course, not that anyone else isn't, but when you know that you have a week, how do you, as a producer, because this is so important, I think, for producers who are listening too, and ones who want to be producers, how do you still stay on track, stay making sure that the story is grounded, because you know this is going to be marketed as well? What did you do? What were some of the tactics and strategies you used to keep the story as grounded as possible, knowing all the parameters?
So that part has to be credited to Rasheed and Tehben. So I was brought on board like kind of like a all hands on deck, more so helping with the promotion, the marketing. I even did some casting. I helped cast one of the characters in the movie. So as you know, as an indie filmmaker, like a producer, like the titles are more so to formalize everything, but in reality, everybody's working as a team. Everybody's working together. So if we don't have a location scout or somebody decorating set or any of that. So if Rasheed needs something on set, like, hey, can you get this, pick this up? That was kind of like my role with that. So the funny story about the timeline of how that came about, Rasheed told me about the idea. He's like, hey, I want to bring you aboard as a producer on this, and if you're available, you can act on it. I wasn't available for the shoot time for the duration, so I was checking in with them like while they were shooting, seeing how it was going, and I remember because he said he told me before he wants to get it done in a week, and I'm like, a feature film in a week? Like, 'cause me and Rashid have worked on short films together, a lot of short form projects. So I'm like, that's kind of like pushing it. I don't know. And I know he does great quality work. So I'm just like, no, we can get this done as a feature film. It's a little different beast. And then I remember like I called him on the seventh day, and I was like, yeah, how's the shoot going? Like, how's everything going? He's like, oh, we're done, we're wrapping up. It's the last day. Just got to get a couple more shots. And I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. Um, so I wasn't there for much of the editing process while they were cutting shots. So when we had the first screening of it, that was my first time actually seeing the project. Um, and I was just blown away. I was like, literally, I was like, the quality, the content, the actors that you're able to put together. Cause that's also the hard thing. Like, as an indie filmmaker, you don't have a budget. I'll let them speak on the budget later, but it's usually a very low budget. So you're asking people to come in. Most people have jobs and different schedules, so they're not going to be willing to really compromise if they have to work too much. So you have to work with their schedule, and that's very hard to coordinate and get everybody together. But Rasheed and Tevin was able to make that work in such a short amount of time, and just the output that came out of that, like I couldn't believe it. You know what I'm saying? Like movies with $1 million budgets don't come out like that. So that was very impressive, and I feel like a lot of people like won't believe that. Once they know how long it took. So yeah, it was just incredible.
That is so incredible. I want to say to your credit, though, when you bring talented people together, there's a lot that you can do.
Hmm.
Incredible. I mean, and that's clear. It's quite clear what this film became. And I love having this honest conversation about that because it goes back to your team. And to go back to what Tevin said about documentary, that to me was what I felt, and I won't give all the story away, but I did see this, and one of the things I loved, and this is the technical side of me, is I saw the intimacy, the close-ups, the we're in the story with Rashid, we're in his moments. There's so much intimacy. You're not just watching a film, you're in it with him. And I want to talk about that and talk about some of those shots. One of my favorite ones, I have a lot of favorite ones, but it goes into this idea of being in community but also being incredibly isolated. And it's the shot, Rashid, where you are sitting, wide shot, and you're sitting and you're eating breakfast. And I see on both sides of you, you have these families. I don't know if that was on purpose, but I immediately felt that. And I'm going to tell you, there's so many times in the film I had to pause because I got emotional because I wanted you to win. I want you to win immediately. When I saw that shot, I was like, this isn't just about an actor, comedian being hungry. This is about a man really, he's by himself somewhat. But we'll talk about that too, because you do have amazing friends in the film that I love too. We'll get to that later. But I wanted to talk about that shot in particular. How was that a purposeful thing to show this in documentary style and to stay with the character? I want to talk about that.
I would say that, I mean, through one of the ideas in terms of the technical ideas for shooting film was, oh, well, we always wanted to, like, there was like maybe one or two instances where we actually kind of shot another angle. But the idea, and that was like due to like where we just had to because of the situation. But like the idea was to shoot everything like we had one go at it because we're like it's like we're there in real time. And we did multiple takes, but we always did entire scenes as one shot, and then chopped it up to tighten it. But so like that was the approach. And part of that was, I mean, that was part of the documentary idea, but it was also part of the like, I think there's something about the realness and like when you're not cutting, because there's an artifice to cutting, right? You can change things. You can make something feel a certain way. You can do multiple, takes on different angles and different people. So and that's normal in filmmaking, but it also the audience is aware that it's happening, even if they're not thinking about it. So when you have something that doesn't cut, there's a tension there that you feel as an audience because it's all happening in real time. And so it feels I think it helps you feel like you're actually there, you're actually experiencing it with character because it's not cut or it's not multiple, it's not all these different setups behind the scenes to get that. And so we wanted to shoot the entire thing like that. Um, the specific scene that you mentioned is is a fun scene. I was skeptical we were going to be able to pull it off. Like
Yeah.
you're right. I think it definitely it put he was there, his own little island, like
Mhm.
surviving with all of this happening around him, and so yeah, we basically shot it, and then I just kind of carried and set the camera down on the table, sort of like pretending like I wasn't filming, and we just let it play out.
That was brilliant. It was so brilliant. And one of the things I really loved was you held, like it works because you held the moment. And there was moments where it just held and you needed to be because I felt like I was drawn in as a viewer and really, connecting with Rashid. There's so many moments like that where I just felt really connected to him, particularly against not trying to get too many spoilers away, but Rashid, when you were having conversations with your father and your uncle, which was so funny. Um, and it was so real. It was just so real. I love those moments. And I wanted to ask you as an actor, because I felt you, I felt the words, I felt, wow, can I do this? And I, maybe this is too getting too touching the emotional core. I would love to know, was that real for you? It felt real to me. It felt like a whole real conversation. It didn't feel like it was scripted at all.
It definitely was real. My whole idea, I mean, because I'm an actor also, as well as a writer director. So I wanted to I want to put myself back in that place mentally where I was in 2012, in the first 5 years I was out in LA. And I remember those feelings of doubt. I remember all that stuff. So those were real feelings that I tried to tap into. So because when people met me at the screenings and stuff, it's like you look different. You seem different. I'm like I'm still an actor, dog. So yeah, those were real emotions, and it's funny because I never been vulnerable in person in life in public ever before. So I remember we had a screening at Slam Dance, and I mean my eyes started raining. I was like, because I was reliving all this stuff on screen for the first time, and I tried to hold it back, and it just I was like, oh man. So it was a beautiful, but it was tears of joy because I'm like I came out of that. I remember because I remember being on those sitting on those corners in Hollywood waiting to get something to eat by those people that feed the homeless and stuff. And I remember that feeling. I never forget the feeling. I'm like, I know I'm not homeless. And then it started building up. I said, I know I'm not homeless. No, you not. No, you not. And I remember I said I never went back to that food truck, even though I didn't have no money. After a while, I got exhausted. So it took me I think about 3 months in before I really told my father that I was homeless. And I remember I called him. It's a real story. I said, Daddy, I got something to tell you, man. And I don't come from a family of money at all. My family, I said, I've been in LA for this long, but I'm actually homeless. He said, you don't worry about it, son. He said, just go do this. He said, find an address, just find it. I'm gonna send you a package. I want you to intercept the package. I'm like, cool, because I'm telling him I'm famished, I'm hungry, I haven't eaten in days. He's like, I got you, son. I got you. I'm like, yeah, my dad got my back. And I remember I had used my ID to intercept the package. I said, look, my ID don't match because I'm from Georgia. I just got here 3 months ago, but that's my package. And the mailman, bless his heart, he let me get the package. I'm like, my dad gave me some perishables. I opened up the box. I called my dad on the phone. I said, yeah, I got the package. I remember taking my keys and opening the box. I'm like, oh, I'm about to eat. And I remember opening that box. It was full of honey, incense, and oils. I'm like, what, man? What you? Hey, son, I'm gonna give you the bait and the hook, but you got to go fish yourself. And I remember I was the distraught I felt in my soul. I'm like, what? I just told you I haven't eaten. So I went to that corner to that Trader Joe's on Vine. I remember I took that box. I said, you know what? He did give me he gave me some bait. He gave me a hook. He gave me a pole. I went inside that that Vines, that Trader Joe's on Vine. And I started barking. I started doing my hustling thing, which I was good at. I was always good at hustling and stuff. I say, hey, who want to buy honey and incense? I was like, ain't nobody gonna buy this shit. I sold out in one day. I made $47 in one day. Fed myself for a whole week. Gosh.
What a story. What a story.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so profound. And I'm sorry, I'm pausing a bit here because we know
I
the
would just
hungry days. Oh, I'm sorry, Tevin.
no, I was just going to add that that was his actual father and actual uncle on the other end of the phone, and so those were very real conversations. We had a sound guy show up at his dad's house in Georgia, and then we just did it, and then he sent us the audio from the other end.
It's incredible.
And remind you, my father had never acted before, so I said, Dad, you want to try it? But he always has a natural. People always say my dad has a natural vulnerability about himself. So my dad, it took him a while because he kept. My dad never been on set. He kept trying to tell the sound guy what to do. He's like, I know. But then once he settled down in it, it became a real conversation. And I said, Daddy, remember that conversation you had with me? I said, look, just 12 years ago, just take it from there. We let him fly.
I want to say that was so beautiful. And it was, again, so natural. So natural.
And
There's so much about the film that I love. I could go on and on and on about it. And thank you, Rasheed, Tehben, Tyree, for this story. It's so necessary, particularly now. And, I think, I don't even want to say, I think this is why the film works because you had to go back there and go back to those spaces and places. And and I want to say this too, and kind of segueing to Tyree, because I want to say that, producing is its own animal. And you still have to, and I think this is to your credit too, because you're an actor as well, and you've written and all of this. So it helps to understand what the actor and the directors, everybody needs. And so I want to definitely keep honing in on the role of the producer and the role of how we keep the train moving. And yes, being that person that gets everything for everybody just to keep the train moving. And I want to ask you the the moment where you said, you know what, we got this. But sometimes you can't say that. Everybody's in the thick of it. And I want to speak to that a bit, Tyree, like for you from the producer's perspective, but also as an actor yourself, how do you balance that? when you you know, how do you come on set? You take the actor and the director and the writer out of it and just be the producer.
Well, as an actor, I feel like you can never take that out of you. Like the same as if you're a director, or a writer, it's just in you, but you learn how to use each element to fulfill whatever role you're playing. That's what I think is incredible about Rasheed. Like he's able to, write, direct, and star as the lead. Like I don't think people really understand the challenge of trying to direct something, but also play a lead character. It's like, because as an actor, you have to get out of your head. Like you can't be thinking about the shot and how you want it, and other actors and all the elements directors think about. You have to really live and be in that moment. But he somehow does a great job and is able to separate those responsibilities. I wanted to make it because you said something about the writing and the realness. I want Rasheed and Tehben to tell you pretty much like how much of the script was written and how much is improv. I want them to speak to that for a second.
I'd love to hear that for sure. For sure. Oh my goodness.
So 90% of it was improv. We outlined the whole script. All we do is
Yeah.
outline the story.
I think we had like a 1 or 2 page outline, and it was just bullet points of every scene. And so we figured the structure of the film out by creating, a list of scenes and a brief description of what was going to happen in them. But then on set, Rashida obviously carries through, and was a co-director, so he was able to lead a lot of those conversations like improvisationally. But we would talk to the actors, whoever was in the scene, and we would be like, all right, this is what's going to happen. This is the arc of the scene, and we're just going to let you guys run with it. And so then we would do multiple takes and like adjust things and kind of choreograph. There's a lot of choreography with the camera and everything as well, and so we would tune all that in. But yeah, there was maybe like a 2 or 3. There was a few lines that we had specific lines written, but the vast majority of it was just improvisational back and forth.
That's insane.
So that
I'm
so that
So
sorry, that's insane. Not insane in a bad way, but that's incredible.
and
Absolutely incredible.
that's what speaks to the realness. That's why a lot of it is so authentic and real, because these are real conversations. Like people was really in the moment, like living the moment. Like, and I love improv. Like, I think it's the most beautiful things because even when you have a script, they often want to see like what's not written. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times that comes out of improv and ad libbing. Like I remember the scene with Rasheed when he's in the car with his best friend, or the working girl. Um, and I thought that was scripted. Like when I first seen it, I'm like, was that scripted? Because that was so heartfelt and emotional. And he said it wasn't. I was like, dang,
Don't
like,
get me started on that one. I cry like a baby. There's
I
yeah,
so
mean,
many moments I just paused. I couldn't. I was like, okay, hold on. That was one of them. And I want to get into that too. I'll let you finish, Tyree, please. Oh my God, because I love Rose. I love
yeah,
Rose.
yeah. Rose she did her thing. I always give her
Oh,
praise and props.
I would
Um,
I would just say, testament to Avis Parsons, the actress for that, Parsons, testament to her ability, her talent, because she really created that character and made it her own, um, based off of an actual friend of Rashid's. Um, but she really took it and was able to like bring a lot of depth out of it. And that was something that we really were cognizant of doing in terms of portraying someone who's a sex worker, um, wanting to really humanize
mm,
them, and not try to put any sort of cliche or specific like thing onto that. And Avis was really did an incredible job of of just showing the real honesty of who her character was.
Man, I loved her so much, so much on so many levels. And I'm so glad you said that, Tevin, because that was one of the biggest things that struck me about that relationship was there was no judgment, just two friends supporting each other and fighting for each other and being there for each other. And that to me was so beautiful. And moving away all the cliches, yes, when you talk about sex workers, and I say this as a woman, thank you, thank you as gentlemen for doing that, for being grounded and not making her a stereotype and really saying, okay, if we're going to show this life, let's show this. But we're going to show the humanity. And I say this as a woman. I'm going to say that. Thank you for that. It was so beautiful to watch those scenes. I always leaned into them. I always wanted to see what was next. And Rose was so, so real. And but there's also a bit of innocence there too. And immediately, Rashid, of course, you want him to win, but you also see the man in him. You see the stand-up guy in him. You see that. That's just who he is. And I want to ask Rashid, how what in your life, in your background, created Rose, what allowed you to play her with such humanity? Talk about that for a minute. I'd love to know that.
Well, I've been fortunate and unfortunate in life. I'm fortunate just to wake up and to be a human being. So I lost my mother when I was 11. I saw my mother pass away. Um, I've been homeless before on the street. So being homeless too, when I was homeless, I was literally on the streets because at one point in time my car got towed, so I was on the streets. So I got to interact with these people. So it gave me a sense of, man, these people got real stories, and you start to interact with them. And I knew I was homeless when these people started calling me by first name basis. I'm like, whoa, man, it was Mr. Stevens like a week ago. But you get to see the humility, and everybody has a story. So it gives me the friction. I've just always, that's always been me not to judge people because I know what it's like to have nothing. I know what it's like to have a lot of something too, which I blew several times. Uh, uh, so it just, I just wanted to show realness. I want to show like everybody got some kind of story, like because even the billionaire guy, if you pull back his curtain, he got something dirty. But we all kind of put adulations on top of those people. But I'm like, what about that person's at bottom? What's their story? How do they feel? What's it? What's the him inside of them? What were their thoughts? Where they come from? How did they get there? So we wanted to convey that and kind of cultivate all those different ideologies and try to display them on screen as real as possible.
So beautiful. And to know that it was unscripted, that part, that part. In the scene in the car, was that one shot? Was that one take? Tevin, was that one
Yeah,
take?
it was one take, and that was actually, sometimes you that was an example of like choreography because we wanted to do one take, but I didn't want to film it from the back. I wanted to film it from inside the car, but I didn't want to film it from the back seat, and we'd done several scenes that way, which worked, but this one we didn't want to do that. And so the choreography with the camera and starting with them both outside and then getting in and being able to film both of them, we're like, all right, well, let's just have her get in the back seat.
Mm.
And then that, led to like that essentially became a prompt for part of the scene. And so a lot of it, a lot of the stuff, because it's improvisational both with the dialogue, and it's improvisational with the camera work,
Mm.
and it's improvisational, but it's all choreographed as well, right? Um, so it's not truly documentary, which I think truly documentary, you're just, I would be the fly on the wall, just sort of, but
Mm.
it's with that approach. But a lot of it, gets crafted because of like of how you want that choreography to play out.
Mm.
But that was a scene where and that was kind of a last. We added that scene on towards the end of the shoot. It wasn't
Mm.
originally there, and
No,
Rashid was.
it haven't. That was the first shot, Devin. Because he was like, no, we got, and the girl ended up getting the set late. That's what happened. So we was able to shoot that scene.
Oh, you're right. That was actually the first day, but we added that scene. I remember we added that scene on because Rasheed was like, "We need this scene," and I was thinking like producer stuff and like all this other stuff, and I was like, "Dude, like, I don't know," and he's like, "No, no, we need this scene," and so we like went across the street to get it, and then we did it. I don't remember how many takes we did, but I do remember that like after we got it, we were both just like, "Wow."
Yeah,
Like
that is
that
wow.
that was that were like
Wow.
You could feel it. You could feel it in the
you could
car.
really
Feel it in
feel
the
it.
air.
You could feel it, and it made total sense for her, from my perspective, to be in the back, without giving that story away. Because there's also a bit of I don't want to say separation, but sometimes when we our friends need a little distance from us. And
Yeah.
that's how I kind of felt that, because at one point, she said, well, I'll get in the front of the car. Like that was part of the dialogue. But to me, she needed that moment by herself to tell this story. And it made total sense to me. Like, again, that's the genius of what you guys have done. Like, to say it was unscripted, but you still intuitively said, from a character's perspective, she would probably do this right now in this moment based on what happened before.
Yeah.
Wow. Deep, deep stuff. I love that. I love all those scenes. Um,
And
of
by
course, you needed. Oh, I'm sorry, Rashid.
this is something that he forgot to mention. I forgot about this earlier. Tyrese, he likes to undersell himself. He's good performative as putting resources together as a producer. He does it very quietly. He don't even acknowledge he did it. It's a lot of things that he put. I call him. He's like, well, try this place or ask this person. So he's good at bringing resources together, which a producer does. So that's what I'm saying. He does it
Yeah.
very quietly.
And that's the thing too, Tyree, being from LA, here's the reality. You know the city inside and out. And I love how Rashid would say, I know all the shortcuts. He's I know the shortcuts as a driver. I know shortcuts. And so Tyree, being from LA, I know there are nuances that you probably didn't even remember that you spoke of on set. But how did being an LA native, how did you bring that to the production for those who were not from LA originally, but had lived here for a while?
Yeah, well, most of it I believe was shot in Hollywood, in that area, and that's more authentic to Rasheed's story when he came and where he stayed. So I'm from LA, so those not from LA, Hollywood is not LA. It's two different worlds. It's very different. Um, so this the film, showcases more of the Hollywood side of LA because it goes with the story. He's pursuing his dream, Hollywood dreams to be a comedian. So those are more so the shots centered around that. And because this is Rasheed's story, it's like he already knew where he wanted to shoot certain things and how he wanted to tell that story because he lived it. This is lived experience with that. So um, I thought, he and Tevin did a great job of, showcasing the authentic side of Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess on the news and TV, it's all glitz and glamour, but really, Hollywood, it's a lot of homelessness out there, a lot of people living out their cars, and that's the reality of this business. Um, this business can, suck you dry. It can leave you on the streets. You're trying to pursue this dream as a writer, an actor, director. Um, but what you don't realize is very hard to sustain a comfortable lifestyle living that life. If you really think about it, so for those of you who are thinking of coming out here and pursuing a dream, um, if you really think about it, you may book something, you may work on something for a few months, but after that show is done, or they could pull the plug, they cancel the show, you're unemployed. So it's like, what are you gonna do? That money doesn't last forever. It may be good at the time, but you have to figure out like how you're gonna sustain your living. So, I think people in the creative space, even music artists, I think you got to be the ultimate hustler. You got to know how to grind. You got to know how to get it, and make a way for yourself. Like you're gonna work a lot of odd jobs. Like I feel like I've lived so many lives, like living, working in the entertainment industry. Like I've had so many odd jobs. Like, I've worked security doing graveyard. I've been a bartender. Um, I've driven Uber. Well, I've been a personal trainer. It's so many different things you have to do to try to, like Rasheed was saying, like feed yourself. Like if you just relying on this entertainment income, which isn't a lot, especially nowadays, like they're really, I feel like lowballing a lot of artists. That's a whole nother discussion. Um, so it's like, how you gonna get it? How you gonna make money? And then on top of that, trying to be an independent filmmaker, how are you gonna fund? How are you gonna find the resources to get this film done? If you don't have a lot of money, you gotta get creative. You can't use not having enough money as an excuse. And that's where the passion comes in. Rasheed and Tehben being passionate, not taking no, and figuring out ways, how are we gonna get this done? We want to get this done. The strike going on. How are we gonna do it? We're not gonna make excuses. We're gonna find solutions. So a lot of the creative direction and that was all them, like coming together and figuring out how to get things done and shoot it. And for me, I have complete trust, in both of them. I've seen both of their work. I've known Rasheed longer, and I know one thing about Rasheed, like if he says he's gonna get something done, he's gonna do it. And it always comes out great. Like every film he's done, I believe has been on some sort of streaming platform. Like all his films, like he gets it out there. And I used to be like, man, how you do that? Like early on it when I was getting into acting, how are you able to do that? Like get it done. You know what I'm saying? So um yeah, that's all them. Like I have complete faith and trust. So it's not like I need to question anything. Some things I'll just be like, how you gonna do this? And he just shows me. So
Wow, what a testament. It's so true. And you see the grit, you see the determination. And it goes back to, yes, the casting director. That was another moment that I loved. And the actor who was playing the casting director, you'd see on his face, he was like, "You really said that?" For those who are watching this film, there's so many moments, there's so many great character actors in this particular piece. Rasheed is totally driving this, and they're playing off of him. But I wanted to speak to that for a moment when he goes back to the grit and, like Tyree was saying, you just get it done. And that was raw honesty in that moment. And sometimes you get rewarded for that raw honesty once in a blue moon. And I loved how you showed that, Rasheed. And so, could you speak to this and speak to other filmmakers who may want to hold back and think it's maybe too risky? But let's talk about that thing called raw honesty for a moment.
It's funny. I've always been authentically myself. I mean, I don't have. It's hard for me to lie. It's hard for me to lie about who I am. I've always just been me. So it comes off on screen because that was a real interaction. I did curse at cast that did happen for real. And she's like, the rawness of you. I said, what? I just believe that you should be authentically yourself because that's when people are going to resonate with you the most. Because one day it's going to spill out anyway. Uh, and it's funny you asked that question because unbeknownst to you, for the last couple of days, I've been watching little documentaries about Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando. And those two dudes, I'm like, damn, they similar to me. They like just always being raw, authentic selves. And it resonates with people because people can see you. No, even if you come with a suit and button up and you try to talk a different way, act a different way, eventually somebody gonna see through you. And people like to resonate with realness. So I just believe just be your authentic self. Somebody's gonna resonate with you no matter what.
Mhm.
I think too, like, there's so many people, even though it's actually not, it's a pretty small amount of people in Hollywood, actually, at the end of the day. It's a small community, but there's so many people out there trying to tell stories and doing this. And it's like a lot of people, I think, come into it thinking like, oh, like this person did this, which works, so I need to do that, or but at the end of the day, it's like if you actually want to stand out, you just need to be yourself and be honest with what you're doing. And that's what I think people can see honesty, even if it's subconsciously, like we're all tuned to be looking out for honesty and dishonesty. And when people see honesty, I think they connect with it, you know, and it does not even if necessarily something that they have to agree with, but like, you know, I mean, that's one of the things that I think is powerful about documentary is just seeing something honest from a perspective that you might not have any connection with. And that ultimately, I think is one of the most powerful ways of bringing people together. Um, and I think that if you look at all of the directors who make films that stand the test of time, it's people who they don't hold back from their ideas, and they may do something that's controversial, or they may do something that's shocking, or they may do something that's just not conforming to an idea that's out, you know, out there, or a set of rules. But it's like, you know, I guess I remember back from early days of getting into film, and it's like people like, you got to learn the rules and then break them, you know. And there's a reason rules exist for storytelling, because there is a structure that works. But if you just follow the rules, it works. But what is it? It's you know. Um, so I think that it's very important to just be honest with what you want to do in storytelling, and not try to make something to conform to someone else's idea or a concept of what you know, you think an audience wants to see. You know, that's what all the boardrooms and all the studios do now. You know, they're like, oh, the metrics, we're using analytics and metrics to like show like this is what blah 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 blah. And sure, like, but that's a downward slope. You know, of start losing. I think you're gonna just the more you do that, the more you're gonna start losing an audience's attention, because they're just gonna be like, we've already seen this. It's the same thing. It's just over and over again. We want something new. We want something fresh.
Yes. Oh, that's a great point. Tevin is such a great point. And one of the things I said when I saw the film is that this is timeless. You can see this 10 years from now and still find it funny, still find it relevant, unfortunately, with regard to the homelessness. But you can still say, how does this fit into the canon of cinema? How does this fit into the story? And yes, that authenticity, you can't boardroom that, to your point. And I think that's why, and this is just my personal opinion, that's why certain shows and don't make it to season two, because there's all the metrics, and you know, we got this star and we've got this script. But you know, some of the funniest stuff, in Rashid, you can attest to this, is raw and unfiltered. And the biggest comedians are not even on TV. They're on Instagram. They're on YouTube because there's no filtering. And so, Rashid, let's speak to that. That that's part of what you do is comedy. I mean, to me, I always look at comedy as drama that you can now laugh at. And so you don't have, what's the filter on your life? There's no filter. So I love that about comedians. I love that you say, you know what, this is raw, this is real, this is who I am. And so that you came with that and you brought that to the film. And I love that for you. And I hope that you keep doing that in your subsequent films, even if they're labeled as dramas. But yes, could you speak to that too? And I want love for you to encourage comedians coming up to keep doing that. We need more of that.
When I first started doing stand-up comedy, I was very inauthentic, and that's because I didn't know my voice. And any comedian tell you, stand-up comedy, first of all, is the hardest art form. I can say this because I'm on both sides. I've been on both sides because it's like public speaking merged with trying to make people laugh. I'm like, that's the toughest thing on earth. And then also trying to you got to, as a stand up comic, you have to relearn how to be yourself. Some people, very few people, only a microscopic portion of people could be authentically themselves when they first start. But it's that, then you got to cultivate a writing style. So I would just say if you stick to your truth initially as a comic, like tell your story. Think, don't try to do what you think gonna make other people laugh. If you're funny naturally, tell your authentic story because you can only pull from your own stories, and you tell those on story and write every day. I would write every day. I was writing. I remember at one point in time, 8 hours. I'd be writing. I'm constantly writing like bullet points. If I see something happen, I write it down. Write it down. So I write with bullet points, but I just get up on stage as much as possible. That's the only way to perform. So you just got to keep getting up, going to those open mics. As dreadful as you may think it is, it helps. It's like practice, 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 practice. And I've been doing stand-up comedy now for I think like nine. Hold on. Jeez, I always get this wrong. I've been doing it since 2011. So I remember the first time I did it, my teacher happened to be there. I'm like, oh my God. And it was terrible. But I said, you know what? Don't give up. Keep going. Keep going and keep going. And I remember I just kept going, and kept getting better and better and better and just writing and writing. And um, I would say don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. Because once you quit, you're going to have to start something new anyway.
It's an excellent point. Excellent point. Oh my gosh, there were so many funny moments in the in the film. Wow. There's a moment where you're doing an interview, and I could see you as an actor. You're starting out. It's so wild because it felt so real to me. Yeah, I could see you in character finding your voice as you're talking to these two young ladies who are interviewing you. And
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that was so deep. I said, is this Rashid or is this the character Rashid? I could almost see your brain going click, 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 finding, okay, what do I say about myself? You're pulling this, you're pulling that. Um,
I'm
which
glad you. I'm
which
glad
is
you
so
referenced that
great.
too. I forgot all about that scene. See, improv for me, I love to dance. I love to dance. So improv for me is like a slow dance, but you got to lead. You got to be somebody lead, and you got to be somebody that follows. So I like to be leading on that. But then at the same time, what makes a person I think good at improv or a good dancer, you got to listen more than you talk. You got to let them move more than you move, and then you start guiding them. So it was funny as I was talking when that scene first opened up. I said, "Look, here's the scene, blah blah blah. Y'all can talk about this, talk about this." And I was talking, I was talking. Then when Tevin said action, I went back into what Rasheed felt at that time when you had all these comics that was talking about what they was doing, and I was just a fly on the wall. But it was like you doing open mics, $5, and so I went back into that mode as an actor because I remember they would the actors had a hard time trying to figure out, am I being serious or you? What's wrong with you? Pick your head up. But it worked though for the scene.
Oh, it did. I could feel that. I could see that. I could see that struggle of what do I say about myself and how do I feel about myself? And that's so deep, so deep. Did you find that particularly, and I want to ask this more a little technical question. How aware were you of the camera when you talk about the improv? Were you concerned about the camera? Did you think about the camera? And did you just let Tevin do his thing? How much of that were you concerned about when?
we we danced together very well, so I already knew he knew
Mm,
how to find me. I just the whole idea was everybody just stay
okay,
alive, and he knew how to find me. He always knew how to find me, so he had a great direction to find me, and I just stayed in the moment, didn't let go.
that's
Yeah, I mean, I
amazing.
would say that it definitely like referencing like a dance. Like that really was a dance because the camera in a way is its own character. It's the audience, and I with shooting documentary for such a long time, I'd had a lot of just experience trying to figure out how to portray what I'm seeing in real time. And so it was like kind of bringing that into this. And I think a lot of it when it comes to like camera operating is it's intuition more so than like, it's intuition and then it's kind of like adjusting after you've done it, then you're like, oh, actually, like, do this. But a lot of that sort of subtlety is it's just intuition in the moment, and it's just I was playing off of Rasheed and whatever's happening in the scene, and just kind of on the fly, like trying to show with the camera, trying to show the emotion or the gravity of the scene, or like what's happening in it. Um, and so in that, for instance, like I think towards the end of that scene, we kind of fade the audio down, and Rashid's like he's really kind of in his head because he's kind of been put on the spot. He's kind of been told what for, but like from someone who probably doesn't really understand where he came from and what he's going through, where he's going through to get that, and so that, and so for me in that scene, like at the end of that, I was just like, okay, I gotta slowly push in on that for the end of the scene, because it's like now we're moving back into his head. He's feeling uncomfortable. He's feeling kind of embarrassed. He's had this opportunity to be on this thing, but he kind of got a little bit tongue tied, and he's had this very upbeat passion and drive to get where he's going, but now he's kind of just been like the reality of where he's at, and from a social perspective or whatever else has just suddenly kind of just been nailed, like put on top of his head in public,
Mhm.
and that's the kind of thing that, like, as an artist and as someone who's trying to make something happen, like that happens. It can be hard to deal with because it can cast doubt into you. You can kind of, there's so many things that you have to just try to like bypass or like skip around to try to not put doubt on yourself trying when you're trying to trying to be to when you're doing something creative, because there's so many roadblocks everywhere, and it can be very challenging to to not just be down on yourself, or and it's I think I would say I think most artists struggle with that, with trying to overcome doubt, self-doubt, you know and I think that for me, that's what that scene was really all about.
When
I
in
felt
doubt,
that.
figure it out.
When in doubt, figure it out. That's deep stuff. I could talk to you guys all day while we are reaching an hour. My goodness, this is a 2 hour conversation. But speaking to that and piggybacking off of that, Tevin, oh my goodness. So Tyree, I want to say this and get into your head a little bit. Speaking of believing in yourself and doubting yourself, um, from a producer standpoint, and you can speak to this for the audience, but also for other filmmakers. How do you, as the producer, your role as a producer, how do you keep that director, actor, writer, folks motivated so we can complete this film, so we can get it on the other side? I think that's so vital and so important. I mean, you're all producers on on this film, but I do speak to that. I'd love to hear that. Um, Before we close out, I really think that's vital to this discussion.
So you're asking like, how do you push through and get it made? Am I
Yeah,
understanding?
how do you keep everyone motivated too as a producer?
Oh, it's a lot easier when you're working with like-minded, passionate people. I think that's key. Who you surround yourself with. Um, if you just get with people who are passionate about the art or with anything about what they do, it's a lot easier to get things done. People who aren't so much driven about money or maybe a certain material outcome, rather they just want to be authentic to their story or their creativity, whatever it is you may do. That part's easy. The motivation comes with just being around like-minded people. So, I mean, I would suggest surround yourself with people like that, especially if you're in the entertainment industry. Especially if you're moving out here, you're gonna run into a lot of superficial people. So get with those who you see are constantly working behind the scenes on their craft. They're not out at the clubs every weekend or, hanging out, um, because they're constantly dedicated and working on their craft. Like somebody, they may not even really officially be shooting something, but they're shooting something because that's their practice. Like they love it so much, they want to master their craft. So once you do that, you don't really need to motivate people too much because you guys will feed off each other. You'll feed off each other's passion. Maybe if somebody's a little down on themselves, you'll be able to pick them up because you've been there before. You know what I'm saying? You guys just kind of feed off each other like that.
Yeah, I would
Wonderful.
say filmmaking it's a very collaborative medium. And that's one of the things that makes it the most challenging, but also the most rewarding. And so it's always easier to work with people that are friends that you can relate to in more ways than just like the job, because in order to get anything done, like it's a very stressful, it's a very challenging, it's a very complicated, and it requires everyone who's involved to just really be fully dedicated to making it happen. Um, and it's just a lot harder when, if everybody's not on the same page, it makes it very difficult to get done. And so I think finding people, and even if it's just like having like a core team of people that you all believe in the same thing and are dedicated to making the same thing happen. And especially when you're starting out, especially in independent filmmaking, it's like you have to wear a lot of different hats. The the structure you see in the credits of movies, like really in the studio system, everyone's got like their own specific job, and oftentimes people in a lot of those jobs don't know how to do anything else, and 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 they wouldn't necessarily be able to pull that off in an environment where they didn't have a specific person for every single job. It's like it's a very different way of going about it when you're an independent film, but like, that's why you can't just be one, you can't just be one thing. You have to be multi-hyphenate to like make it happen, and do every, like, we didn't have any crew on this. We had to do it all. Rasheed and I did almost every role ourselves. Um, so,
So
but it's like
incredible.
that's what it took. It's like we're like, okay, we have to do it. Like I recorded the audio. I hate recording audio.
Mhm.
I don't. I'm not. That's not my. That's not my skill set. But like, I can figure it out and make it happen because I needed to. You know.
I think
Look where
I
you
think
guys
you
are
gotta be so
now.
kind of crazy. You have to channel, and I mean this in a good way. You have to channel your inner crazy to be in this business. And
You're
if it's almost
crazy.
like Tariq relates to this too, being a football player. If you don't got no little bit of crazy about yourself, then you're gonna be out of there. If you get, oh, I'm gonna be normal. Hey, that normal don't even exist. That don't exist.
Yeah.
That's
No,
incredible. Yeah.
you do have to be a bit crazy, I think, to make this your life, um,
Yeah.
because
Wow.
it's not an easy path, and and money and art don't mesh very well. A lot of times art needs money, but like at the end of the day, art itself, actual art, doesn't, because that's taking this and putting it out here for someone else to see, and that you can do with your phone. Like you don't, that doesn't require
Yeah.
any special equipment or any, that's that, if you have that and you put that out there, that's going to connect with people regardless of whether or not it, was, you had like Roger Deakins to shoot it.
People always waiting for that perfect storm that never happens. And then sometimes people think you need to be perfect, but it only takes one person one day to become 1% better.
That's right. And I tell you, you know, this. film is currently streaming on Amazon Prime. So let me tell you, there's a lot of people who are going to see this film, who are watching the film. And that ultimately is the goal, is to get it out to as many people as you can. And to your credit, to all of your credit, you did that. And that's such an incredible story that we're hearing today. And I admired you all before, but this is like stratospheric. It's just a whole nother level. And I appreciate the grit, the love, because I felt it. And I'm sure so many people have felt it. And let's continue doing this and talking about how to make this better. And I'd love to have you all back to talk about the next project and the next project and the next project. And do any of you have any words before we take off again?
I definitely thank you for your wonderful questions, your warmth, and your very precise, actually, very thorough research person. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It's been a really great conversation, and I would just encourage people to just go out and do it yourself, and that's what's going to get you to the next step.
Yeah, this was definitely a great conversation. I'm happy we were all able to get together, and I'm glad you guys were able to meet LaChris. Like, she's an incredible writer, director, producer, all she wears all the hats too. So it just aligned perfectly, because LaChris, it's been a while, like, since we talked and been able to connect, lives. But I've always thought you were a great person, and how Rasheed and Tehben's minds work. I just think, in the future, we need to work on something, because you guys, everybody
So
here is like,
they're going to produce a hat right there.
All day, all day.
I
yeah,
agree, though. I agree.
yeah,
That's how you
everybody,
make connections and make it work, and the
mhm.
genius happens. And it's quite clear you all are geniuses. I
No,
cannot,
definitely.
and for
Yeah.
those who are watching, please watch this movie. Please, you're going to laugh a lot. You're going to cry for sure. And you're going to feel this story on so many levels.
Yeah, and I believe Rasheed, is it still on Tubi, or it's just Amazon Prime now?
Tubi and Amazon right now. For right now, it may be on. Well, we got some things in the works right now, but I can't really discuss that right now. I'll talk to you about it off phone.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, this is so amazing. Yes. We'll keep talking about this. Thank you all.
All right, I
Uh,
appreciate it.
let's make something happen.
Thank you.
Take care.
Let's do it.
Godspeed.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.